Hello and welcome back to Confessions of a Gamer Girl podcast. I'm your host, Doomcutie, and here with me I have our lovely co-host, Liessshy.
Hello, everybody.
And Ellie.
Hello, hello.
And we are graced with the incredible presence of the amazing Hexsteph. Welcome in.
Hi, thanks for having me.
I did say in the green room before we started the podcast that I had a dream to share. Now, Liessshy and Ellie know exactly what I'm talking about, but my dream was that you did not show up.
Look, it's not that wouldn't be like an impossible scenario. I'm a bit of a space cadet, and I exist in a complex system of lists and reminders and calendars and friends who are like, hey, remember that thing's happening. So sometimes it does all fall apart, and that just is part of it.
Well, I'm glad it didn't fall apart today. And so, yes, if you're wondering why we're so startled by you actually showing up, that is the reason why.
At least she's honest.
Today, we have a fantastic episode for you. We are going to be talking about content creation in gaming, which I know. And I think we can all really bring our own sort of perspective on this and our experiences so far. So I'm really interested to see where we travel today.
It's going to be a lot of fun. A lot of experiences right here.
Most definitely. So I think what I kind of want to start with before we get into that is, what has everyone been playing? Liessshy, what have you been playing?
I've actually been playing the Palia closed beta, which is now an open beta. And I'm so in love with that game. It is everything that the cozy gamer in me wants in an MMO. One that, I can interact with people if I want to, but I don't have to at the same time. I can see other people on the screen and enjoy their presence, but you got my own pace. So it's it's amazing. If you haven't signed up to the beta, do it, because it's open now, and it's a lot of fun.
I've had some friends playing it. It looks really like a positive vibe. I get so much from the aesthetic, particularly in an MMO where you're spending so much time, and it's about kind of just immersion in a world. Mm-hmm. If it's creating the right mood, I think that's why I spent so much time in Valheim, which isn't an MMO, but it's a survival game that I kind of turned into like a cozy crafting food simulator. It was all just because of the mood that it created and the kind of the color palette and the music and stuff. That's such a big part of it, I think.
100%. Like, this game has the potential to be an amazing world. Like, you can absolutely tell it's still a beta. They've got a lot of work to do, but what they've given us so far is it's really, really nice, and it's relaxing. I think that's the biggest thing that I love about it the most, is that I jump on, I'm instantly at peace. So I found my new relaxant.
That's handy. I've gone the opposite. I've gone like absolute carnage with The Last of Us 1, the part 1.
Oh wow.
I've been streaming that for the past couple of weeks, and I am quote unquote a very average gamer. So my aim is like this, and I just hope that it ricochets and gets them. And then I've also been looking up how to defeat one of the Rhino boss in Spider-Man Miles Morales, because I gave up on that a while ago, and I'm determined to finish it. So I had to look on YouTube on how to do it, because I was struggling. So I've gone the opposite of cozy. I've gone raw chaos.
Amazing.
I loved seeing your photoshopped head on the cover of the game. That was cursed AF. Like,
the pose in my power pose, like the smiles off into the distance, really sold it. And you just lower all of the lights just to really get the grayscale. And the fact that Liessshy was like, your name is Ellie, why are you not on top of
You're
Ellie's
the real
face?
Ellie.
Why did I think of that? And so obviously I had to go and make that, and that was even more cursed. It was like, don't look at this, because your future's cursed for 7 years. Like, oh God. It was awful.
Oh my goodness. Do you know what game I've been playing? And it's a terrible, terrible, dirty little secret of mine. Disney Dreamlight Valley. I know. It's just so relaxing.
I remember
to
it.
play. It's I'm planting carrots. Okay.
Yeah.
I'm planting carrots with Mickey Mouse. I'm saving all these friends from the impending doom that is the shadow that is coming into the land, and I'm there to rescue everyone. I feel like a great sense of purpose. It's fantastic.
I have a love-hate
That's
relationship
awesome.
with that game.
What? Do tell.
Long story short, when it first launched in early access, I bought it on the Switch and the cloud save did not work. So I went to America, played it on the plane, got really far into it, and I came back, and a couple months later I bought a new Switch, transferred everything over, did not take my save file.
No.
Hours gone. So I kind of refused to play it again. But that's why Paley is good, because it's very similar.
I've been playing a few things. One of them I think is potentially obvious by my my title.
BG3. I can see that.
Yeah. It's been taking up a lot of my time, let me tell you. And I've been excited about Baldur's Gate for such a long time because I was a huge Divinity Original Sin fan. I've played a fair bit of D&D in my time, but I think my my issue with D&D was just the social pressure of getting together with people on a regular basis,
right?
Scheduling, and feeling like I was going to let the team down. I was going to be the one to let the team down because I have the wackiest kind of job hours, so it was usually going to be me sort of messing other people around. So I would always kind of bail out of D&D campaign plans because I didn't want to be the one that was kind of ruining it for the group. But one shots are great for that reason. I was
think. I was gonna say one shots. They're the ones I normally stick to because I'm the same. Like, it's just show up for the one night, have a good time for a few hours, and then you don't have to commit to something.
No pressure. But Divinity Original Sin, obviously being able to play it remotely and also just the sort of nature of it being a little bit more gamey, I got really into, and I forged a really great group of friends around that time. And all of us were kind of at different stages of our lives, but kind of brought together by this one experience of going through this game. And I really fell in love with Larian's approach to humor and trying to kind of bring the magic of Dungeons and Dragons to life in a video game as authentically as possible, which is a hard thing to do because so much of it is about, it's not about video game systems. Like, yes, it is about damage rolls and stuff like that, but it's about thinking outside the box and what is a different way I could, approach this situation, and could I talk my way out of it, or could I romance my way out of it, or could I
well
fill a barrel with a bunch of things and drop that on someone's head. Like, they made it possible for you to do all of that stuff if you just thought outside the box, and that kind of same creativity has been brought to Baldur's Gate 3 kind of
amazing
tenfold, so
yeah, it is it's something that I've wanted to jump into, but I feel like it's huge and I'm afraid.
Yes.
So any
bit
tips,
of a time sink.
Any tips you can give me, that would be fantastic, because I don't even know where to begin.
Yeah, I guess it's turn-based, so again, there's kind of like no pressure to sort of move through it at any specific pace. What I will say is that if you are someone who is in any capacity invested in like romantic relationships, like, that's a huge motivator for me.
Is this just a dating simulator game?
I just really I think it's like because I love fantasy fiction, and to me, like, I love a good fantasy adventure, and I love it to have all of these different elements and stuff. But like, if there's like some sexual tension that's kind of carrying the story through, it's that my favorite, I think, stories have always kind of been underpinned by that. And that, I think, is so much of, like, anyone who's ever played Dragon Age or Mass Effect or any of those games where you have a party of people with you and they all have really different stories and backgrounds. And as you get to know them, you start to understand their sort of vulnerabilities and the inner workings of their minds and stuff. And all that kind of, interpersonal relation stuff is really interesting. And there are so many characters in this game to kind of get to know and understand and go on this journey with, that I don't know, that it's hard to not be thinking about it all the time. And I would say that if you're worried about the game aspect of it, just put it on the lowest difficulty and play it for the experience of the story and the relationships, because it's wonderful.
I personally, thinking about the trends of games and sort of what's been the most popular recently, I feel like Baldur's Gate 3 has really come out of nowhere. It's a turn-based game, and all of a sudden it's just, I don't know if it's the cult following from the previous expansions or what, but it's been really successful, and the gaming community have really embraced it.
I think it's because it has roots in Dungeons and Dragons, so that's a very big fan base to begin with. And I think also Larian have, because of the fact that it's a huge IP and they have a lot of money behind them, they've really been able to foster an environment of creating a game that doesn't really exist that much anymore, where they've just got a massive team with heaps of money and time and love to make something really good and well with no microtransactions or live service anything. Yeah. It's just like, it is just a big AAA game that took a long time to make and has been made really well and is now released. And I would hope, based on what we've heard, with like minimal crunch, dev crunch. So that it's just such a rare, that doesn't really happen.
No.
And it's only with a big brand like that I think you can kind of get away with it.
For sure. Speaking of crunch, I'm sure that we as content creators certainly feel that within our space. And I think, Steph, you have been in this game for a really long time, and you have just moved from strength to strength. And personally, you're just awesome. Okay, you're just
Thanks,
dude. But I know for a fact that it wasn't always this way, and I'm sure that in the very beginning you faced many challenges. Is there any challenges that you can speak to that you'd like to share?
Yeah, I guess like the sort of unique position I have is being able to have seen the industry, particularly in Australia, change, particularly for women, throughout the time that I've been in it in a pretty dramatic way. Because of, at the time when I started on Good Game, there weren't really a lot of visible women in gaming. I don't like to say there weren't a lot of women in gaming, because I think there were, just kind of unseen. And maybe not in the roles that they wanted to be, or maybe they were playing games and they just weren't vocal about it, that kind of thing. And as we've seen more women move into STEM and development and all of that kind of stuff, we've been able to see a bit of a shift in the kinds of games that are getting made and more diverse dev teams, and that has kind of affected the culture in a positive way. And I think also Twitch was probably one of the biggest changes for women in the industry, because it created a platform for women that they could kind of empower themselves to take, rather than sort of waiting for someone to understand the value of having women in their team. They could just put themselves out there and be like, you know what, I want to share this thing that I love. And suddenly people are like, what? Women play games? That's crazy. So
it's not just a fantasy, guys. It's for real.
Yeah. So yeah, it was definitely tough at the start. When I sort of, took over from like a male host of the show on the ABC that I was hosting at the time. But, I think what has been the most like interesting part of the journey has been just how the industry has changed as a whole, because I, first of all, never expected to be working in this industry to begin with, because my understanding of the gaming industry at that time was that like you were either a developer or or not. Yeah, you were kind of coding and stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
My best subjects at school were music, art, and drama, just to paint a picture of the kind of student I was.
I'm so surprised. I'm so surprised by that, Steph. Really?
Yeah, no. I did general maths, and I had maths coaching like every day. Every week of my schooling life just to kind of get through the most basic level. It was really like, it was tough. And it was obvious to everyone that I was kind of creatively focused, but I couldn't quite nail down which area I wanted to go into, because anyone who kind of is involved in anything creative understands, like, just because I can draw didn't mean I wanted to draw for a living.
Yeah.
And, you know, just because I could sing didn't mean I necessarily wanted to put myself through the, you know, music industry and all of everything that goes with that and all that kind of stuff. And I guess my kind of nerdy outlet, being a massive reader and a massive fantasy fiction fan, was video games being a kind of extension of those worlds. So I loved a lot of fantasy video games and I loved immersing myself in those, but I never saw it as a career opportunity. So kind of ending up in television and video games was kind of a merging of the things that I was good at and passionate about in such an oddly specific way. It seems ridiculous that it happened at all. You know, like, it was like I was uniquely qualified for this very specific job, and I feel really fortunate that that I had the opportunity to kind of go after it, and it was great. And then there was this kind of strange shift that happened about around the time that I left the show, where everything kind of moved online and everything was kind of moving to Twitch, and then it became more about content creation, and that, I think, has been a weird and new learning experience for me also. And I think the fact that it has changed so much, even from when I started, has been like the biggest challenge. I feel like I don't know where it's going. So it's hard for me to envision what the future of it is. Yeah.
You've just been kind of riding that wave of change as it goes, have you?
Yeah. I mean, there's no precedent for it. I can't look to someone who's like, you know, 30 years ahead of me and been like, oh, they've had a successful career and they ended up in this place. You know, it's hard to kind of just look and just into a blank void and be like, I hope it works, you know.
Well, if anything, it's the pioneer of gaming careers now. Like, you're part of that kind of era where it kicked off, that gaming careers was kind of taken seriously. So if anything, you and your crew are like the pioneers of gaming careers, and kids in 10, 15 years will be like, oh, look where you could end up. And they'll be looking ahead at your career, you know, being like, I'm going to be like that one day.
No pressure. No pressure.
No pressure. I mean, all of the pressure. It's all on your shoulders, Steph.
How have you guys found your kind of experience in sort of navigating into it? Because I came to, like, well, Twitch and social media with a kind of a platform already from the show that I was on. So it was, I had a leg up in that area, and I've kind of maintained that audience, but I wouldn't say that I've really built much of a new audience since. Majority of the people who watch me now are people who've watched me forever. So
okay.
I'm always curious about the experience of people who've kind of found their way into it more organically.
Yeah, well, I guess I'll kick off. I started 8 years ago now, and I had no intention of being on camera, because it all just started as posting my collection and what I loved to a community online, because I didn't actually have friends that liked what I liked. I was definitely like the odd one out, and I kept my gaming hobby a secret for growing up my whole life. So I found a couple of people on Instagram that were like posting stuff. I'm like, why don't I do this? Because I can engage with people. And then maybe a week or two later, a photo I posted got reshared by a brand that it was Crash Bandicoot mug by Numbskull, and I turned it into a pot plant, a little succulent, and they reshared it, and that started bringing people in. And I'm like, okay, I didn't know this was a thing. Let's just keep rolling with it. And within just a couple of months, like, I went from nothing to, I don't know, I think it was like 5,000-6,000 followers. So I'm like, okay, let's try and change a little bit more. And then I grew the confidence to get on camera. And that's when I started to realize that there's Twitch, there's a live streaming platform, there's a space where people are actually showcasing gaming properly, because I never knew about that. You know, I knew the shows you were on, but that was about it. So just to find this whole other world was amazing. And to finally find a place where I felt like I belonged really motivated me to want to try. And I most of my years were on Instagram. It took a little while before I got to YouTube. And when I did, I feel like I unlocked this other area where, you know, I could just show myself a bit more creatively, because obviously you post a photo, it's just a photo, right? And now navigating into the world of everything is video focused, like it just changes so much, and it can be really hard to keep up to date with it and to try and stay on top of the game, especially when there's so many people doing it now. But I think that the future of what we can show online it's in my eyes, I'm pretty hopeful that it's going to be something that's going to be amazing. It already is, but I'm going off track a little bit, but it can be really hard to stay on top of it, especially after all the years I've done it. You know, I've gone through a lot of change in a different way. How do I stay relevant? You know, that's the question I ask myself every day. Yeah. So it's a juggle. And I see, you know, a lot of new people coming along, and I just want to be like, message and be like, oh my God, you know, keep at it, because it does change so fast. And the moment you kind of let yourself go, you fall off track, you lose your motivation. That's it. So it is interesting times that we're in, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because it's not just the content that's like changing. I would say it's the platforms as well.
Yeah.
Like you were saying before, Steph, that first it was just, you know, Instagram started, and then Twitch is getting bigger. And now we've got things coming through like Threads. Like there's so many platforms now for people to be on and make a noise on. That is like, how do you keep up with all of them? But on top of that, keep on top of what people are interested in, because all of it's changing all at the same time. And it's almost like you just need this special little formula that everyone is chasing, but like almost nobody has at the same time. So it for the most common example I would say would be Instagram and Reels. That essentially was photographs, and now it's Reels and it's carousels, and it's just keeping up with how everything adjusts. And it's I would say it's quite intimidating, but fun at the same
100%.
I think when I first started, I didn't realize I didn't realize this was a job. I didn't realize you could do this. I didn't realize that you could work with brands. I just did it for the fun of it. I first started sharing screenshots from Forza Horizon. And on Instagram, that was like my first group of followers. And it all of a sudden changed, because I felt this. I had Forza actually share one of my photos, which was awesome. I was like, oh my God, this is amazing. and then my audience was like, do you stream? And I think that's when I got opened up into this whole world of like gamer girls and, you know, them streaming and all these different kinds of games. And like, I'd played games all my life, but I hadn't seen the kind of evolution of it to what it is today. And when I was extremely overwhelmed, to say the least. I did not I still to this day, I'm constantly learning. There's always something new to learn. There's a new social media to learn. There's a new algorithm to learn. There's a new kind of editing to learn, and you're constantly keeping up with trends and things like that. But going into this, I didn't think about any of those things. So I do have a Twitch account. I was streaming for a little while, but I have a career. I have a family. I'm a full-time teacher. I'm currently on leave at the moment. So it was incredibly difficult to juggle not only my teaching career, but also the demands that kind of content creating has. And there are a lot of people that manage it. They go out to work, they come home, they stream for 5 hours, they go to bed, they go to work, they stream for 5 hours, they go to bed. Like I couldn't keep up with that. So I said to myself, I said, look, you're doing this for the love of it. You should continue to do that. So I've kind of, I don't know, wriggled my way into something that feels comfortable for me. And, you know, if I'm not the number one gamer girl content creator, like that doesn't bother me. I have people that follow me because they like my content or for whatever reason, and I'm happy with that. I decided to focus less on the numbers and more about what I'm getting out of it, and that's sharing a passion. So yeah, about 2.5 years ago, I got approached to be on a podcast and to do writing for a website. And I thought to myself, maybe if I invest more energy into that, that feels more me. I'm not a Twitch streamer. Like I have, but I don't think that's what I entirely want to do. And I always felt this need to be incredibly on and like this big character, which I don't think I am. And because, comparison is the thief of joy. I know that. And I wasn't enjoying it. So sometimes I'll do it when I feel like I want to do it. And then people will, jump on and watch if they want to. And I'm okay with that. I'm at peace with that. And then I kind of moved into this kind of niche where I wanted to, because obviously I'm a teacher at heart, I've always wanted to deliver informative, inspirational kind of content to people. And this is where I've landed, on a podcast.
Amazing.
All females, which it's kind of a vibe.
Yeah, man.
Just a tad.
That's awesome. I think that's the right attitude to kind of go into it with. And it's easy to say that, I know, when sort of trying to make a career out of it and all that kind of stuff. But I think it's very easy to constantly be comparing yourself to other people and watching how quickly sort of trends change and trying to keep up with it and stuff. And obviously there's always going to be an element of that. If you're making something that's just for yourself, that's fine. But if you want to make a career out of it, potentially not viable. So you do have to be thinking about what it is that people are going to want to engage with. At the same time, I think it sounds corny, but you have to be like true to who you are, because otherwise you're just constantly you're just constantly trying to reinvent yourself every other week to keep up with things and make stuff that you don't even enjoy, just because it's like, oh, this is the thing that people are doing at the moment. It feels a bit crazy. The push towards short form video content, I find, has been exhausting for me.
100%.
I just don't have that much video content in me. It's just so hard. It's difficult.
Now you'll have you got maybe a 4-hour stream, and you're trying to condense that into 5 2-minute videos or whatever. It's so difficult.
It's also just like, I don't know, it's just so much of my face out there as well, I think. Which sounds funny, because obviously if you have a public profile and you're making a career out of that, but I think, I was used to seeing, when I worked in television, I worked in a production team, and we all made that show together. I was responsible for playing and reviewing games, but then I also would do a big footage log and work with an editor on that review. And I'd be, talking with my co-host, and we'd be, in meetings and stuff like that. We would shoot the kids show on one day, we would shoot the adult show on the other day. And then for the rest of the week, it was just production time. And so I would see my face on television for 30 minutes, once or twice a week. And that was that. And now I live in a world where it's like, your face every day. People need to see your face. And it's so exhausting, and it feels really intense. And so there's times when I'm just like, I want to be able to just take a nice product photo. And I took a long time, setting this up with the lighting and stuff. And, it won't do as well unless it has my face in it. And that is something that I've really struggled to grapple with. I remember we went sorry.
Oh, no, that's fine. I was just going to say, I literally have that issue. I will post a photo, an amazing photo of a product, but it's like, unless I post a photo of myself as well, or I'm in the video as well, it doesn't do as well. Obviously not at the same numbers as Stephanie Bendixsen. But for what is regular for me, I definitely feel that, because, and I don't know, okay, forgive me if I'm wrong, is it because we're girls?
That was what I was potentially thinking, because we're all such stunning little chickens that people just want to see how beautiful we are all the time. You want to see a mug, or do you want to see a beautiful little chicken woman? Obviously the chicken woman.
I love that. I think that's part of it, but I think it's also just the way the algorithm is like constantly just feeding you imagery, and I think your kind of like monkey brain sees a human face and stops.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or chicken brain.
Chicken brain for the chicken girlies. That's where it ends.
I'll tell you.
It is exhausting though.
Where did you see your transition then to be more online after you were predominantly on television? When did you see that you then had an appearance online to keep up with the audience that you did build from being on television?
I think, it was difficult because while I was at the ABC, because the ABC is a government-funded network, there is no advertising on the ABC, and we couldn't do any kind of commercial work at all. Like it was like expressly forbidden. We couldn't accept gifts. We couldn't even like if say a massive developer like Naughty Dog were like, we're releasing The Last of Us 2, we'll fly you to LA to interview the developers and talk about the game. You know, there's no onus on you to speak about it positively, but we just want press coverage of it. Like, we'll fly you over here. At the ABC, we couldn't accept that because that could have been seen as bias or accepting a gift in return for something. And when it's taxpayer-funded money, you just can't do any of that. So it was really hard. We had to say, no to a lot of really cool opportunities, and like we would get sent things and have to send them back and all that kind of stuff. It was really tough. It was really tough.
Is that why you felt the move, the shift to?
No, I think I felt them. No, because it was as frustrating as it was sometimes. At the same time, I had a steady full-time job in one, video games, and two, television. Like most people who work on a television show work on a show for like 8 weeks out of the year or something. To have a show that ran from like January to December weekly was unheard of, unless you're working in news or something. So it was just, I felt so incredibly fortunate to be working on this show, to have this like steady paying job in a, in a field that I really genuinely loved. So I stayed there a long time because I loved it, but I felt the industry shifting online, and I was concerned about the show eventually getting cancelled and me only having been known as being able to do one thing. And so I was like, if I'm going to stay in television, like who is going to hire the girl who's only ever done the video game show her whole life? And then at the same time, I was like, can I even stay in television? Because like, what's happening to television? At that point, everything was shifting to reality TV. That's all that you see on commercial networks. I was like, I'm not interested in that. And so how can I stay in video games? And I was like, this is the space I need to move into. So I kind of took a transition job at Channel 7 for a while, which allowed me to start taking commercial stuff on the side because it was no longer, that was a commercial network, so I could do stuff. And once I started to be able to do a little bit of the commercial work on the side of my TV job, I was like, okay, there's enough coming through that I feel like I could move to freelance and exist solely doing that. So yeah. That was kind of the steps that I took. And during that process as well was when I found an agent, which was, having a manager was kind of like something that I'd never had at the ABC because there was no point. I couldn't take on any extra work. And my salary at the ABC was just like, this is what we have. That was like how it worked. Yeah.
It's very fixed, for sure.
Yeah.
I know that there is a lot more information out there in regards to getting managers and agents for content creation in this space. When would you recommend that someone gets one? Is there like a magical number, or is it just something? Did you feel like it helped you gain more of a following? Because maybe some people might see it that way.
Yeah, I think it's tricky because I know that I was in a very different position to most people. So, I kind of went with a television contract and used that as a bargaining chip and went to a lot of agencies and was like, here, I'm about to sign on to Channel 7. And so an agency was like, oh, if we sign her, we're at least guaranteed 20% of this salary that she's getting from this commercial network. So I knew that I could get a really good agency from that. But I think the the thing for me is that the contracts that I get sent are like this thick. It's crazy. Like they're so intense, and I get super worried when I see sort of newer creators just kind of signing onto stuff that potentially says that they can use your face in advertising for 5 years, or you know, whenever they want, or that you're completely liable for all of this stuff that you shouldn't be. You know, all of that kind of thing, or they own everything that you make and can use it for whatever they want, and all that kind of stuff. So a manager is really good for that, but you know, a manager takes 20, my manager as industry standard is 20% of everything you earn. So until you're sort of at a point where you're able to take on large enough contracts that that's going to be viable for you, that's such a huge chunk of your income. And I think you need to be taking on enough work that the manager is kind of also serving as someone to kind of help organize your life and your sort of schedule. I don't mean down to the minute, but like part of, you know, I have ADHD and I really struggle. I mean, I know so many people in the gaming industry do, but I really struggle to stay on top of things, and moving to freelance, that was really tough. And so part of having a manager is just having someone who's constantly on me to be like, don't forget this thing is happening, and remember this. You know, I saw that you sent through a draft of that, but you haven't included the watermark that they suggested, like all these different things that are constantly part of doing commercial work that becomes really difficult to stay on top of the more of it that you take on. Managers are really good for that. So I guess you need to be able to be in a position where they're able to do all of that for you and make it worth taking that 20%, because otherwise, you know, I would say still to this day, 90% of the work that I get comes directly to me, not through my manager. So it's not like they're finding me heaps of work. It's about the work coming to me and me saying, can you negotiate a deal and make sure that the contract terms aren't exploiting me, and then help me schedule this into the other stuff that I need to do. And for me, that is so incredibly worth the 20%, because when I think about trying to survive without that, I would have to be, you know, hiring lawyers to deal with contracts, and I don't know how I would stay on top of the workload and all of the different things, and then and I don't want to have the money conversation. I don't know what's right and what's fair in the scheme of like usage rights and things like that. So yeah, it's a long-winded way of not really answering the question, but I feel like
I guess you know when you know, right? Is there like a gut feeling? You're like, all of a sudden I've got, you know, I'm getting these PDF files of all the like of all this stuff that I just don't understand. And potentially that is the time where you need to reach out to someone and say, hey, I'm being paid X amount for this, even if it's just a one-off time or something like that to start off with.
I guess it comes down to, I guess, the volume of work, and I guess the complexity of the contracts that are kind of coming across your desk. Because if you're just signing contracts without fully knowing what you're agreeing to, then I think that's not great. But I also know that there's a lot of gaming talent agencies that have kind of popped up out of nowhere now that don't really have the qualifications to represent people. I think it's just like anyone who's worked in the gaming industry is suddenly like, I guess I could be a manager. And it's like, nah. Could you though?
Understanding contracts without being a lawyer per se. You'd have to have an extensive business background for sure.
Or at least have like some kind of agreement with a lawyer that they're going to look over the more complex stuff for you, for, you know, as part of that business and stuff. Because otherwise, you know, it becomes a bit exploitative, I think. So I'd be wary of all of those kind of gamer talent agencies that don't have a reputation that you can trust. And I would say it's not worth getting an agent or a manager until you're at a point where you feel like the volume of work is justifying the 20%. Because if you think that they're going to be finding work for you, the reality is they're probably not. They're just really there to facilitate contracts and I guess a fee.
Certainly. And at the end of the day, you don't want to be exploited, and I don't want to see anyone exploited. but to say that, in my experience, I've signed more NDAs about games in the last year than I ever have before. I feel like NDAs are like much more common practice on potentially non-managed content creators, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And I was pretty like taken back by sometimes some of the things that were inside there. It was like, make sure when you play the game, the curtains are shut and the door's locked and it's not near any windows that face the street. And like
CIA.
That's paranoid.
Someone's outside your home, like looking in.
Yeah.
And it was just wild to me, some of the things in there. Obviously, you know, this is about an unreleased game, so it wasn't about anything about them. We're going to put your face on all the buses and not going to, you know, give you any money for that. Like, it wasn't anything like that.
Yeah. I see. I guess it's like in the past they would be kind of working exclusively with journalists who are operating under the possibility of getting sued and stuff like that. So they kind of, even though journalists would still be signing NDAs on occasion, now because so much of the marketing is done through sort of that more of a scattergun approach and content creators and stuff, they're like, we're just going to give this random unreleased game to people and like hope that no one releases it. Yeah. So they're
like, don't play it in an internet cafe. Like, don't play it.
They're trying to put fear of God in you more than anything, I think, to just like make you feel like it's the most serious thing ever, because otherwise someone's just like, I could put this on YouTube. Who's gonna know? Like,
I'm so small. No one even watches me anyway. This could make me blow up. You know?
Totally. Yeah. And people are so desperate for views and for followers now that they would risk, you know, whatever legal action or, you know,
burning
maybe
bridges.
never working with that developer again if it means that a bunch of people clicked follow on their account, you know, during the time they had that footage up. Yeah.
Certainly. I think that desire to be popular is very strong in a lot of people. And you know, we can go into a whole rigmarole around the, you know, psychology behind that. But I think probably the biggest thing in regards to content creating is well, for me personally, everything that I do, does this add to my integrity? Is this serving my integrity as a person? Because my identity online, my digital footprint, and this is probably something that, I mean, we weren't taught about it at school, but it is in the curriculum now. We talk about your digital footprint and what that looks like, and how once you post something, someone can grab it and it's, you know, it's out of your hands. You can't control that. So making sure that what you do put out there is serving your integrity and not discrediting you.
I think that's also the stress with cancel culture as well, because of that strong digital footprint, things that were done or said, you know, 10 years ago when they were deemed as socially acceptable, people wouldn't have said it if it wasn't, and now being dragged up and used against people, even if they've had such a decent turnaround of who they are as a person and what they put out. It could have been something that was socially acceptable back then, and it's now dragged up to be part of cancel culture. But because of everyone's differing opinions as well, cancel culture is everywhere, and it can be quite terrifying. I think cancel culture is very scary.
Yeah, for sure, because you're kind of not allowed to I guess evolve as a person, and obviously it's a scale, right? Like there's some stuff that you're just kind of like, okay, well, like regardless of the time, like that's a not a great thing to do. But, you know, the language that I used in high school is not the language that I would use now based on, you know, our understanding of a lot of different things. And, you know, if you know, the technology that we have now was available then, there would be so much more of a record of stuff that I would not be able to defend, and it would be so scary. Like
everyone's butt crack would have been out all over the place. Like the amount of low-rise jeans are coming back. Can that just not be a thing, please? I'm traumatized by that as a teenager. I saw one of those oh gosh, those like band belts, you know, the ones from
Oh my
Supre that were
gosh, from Supre. My core memory for me is walking past a Supre shop window and seeing those bands and it being like, it can be a top, a belt, or a skirt. And it was like,
like this thing.
And it was like all
And then
three
chuck on the bow headband as well.
It's like this thin piece of fabric.
I swear it was probably maybe 15 centimeters in width. Like it was no joke. Like your cheeks, your butt crack, that would have been all over the internet. So I'm very glad that technology did not exist when I was a teenager.
We didn't have shame. We didn't have shame back then. No. We've got the shame now and it will stick with us forever.
But at the same time, everyone has all of these like amazing YouTube tutorials. So I feel like teenagers just look amazing and glamorous all the time.
Exactly.
And I was reading Dolly magazine, like smearing blue eyeshadow onto my eyelids, like being like, I think this looks good.
This is amazing. It kind of looks like the Dolly magazines.
Like rubbing body glitter like all over my arms. Like,
all of my
smelling
stained. The tan, orange, streaky tan you put on a Friday night before the weekend. You're like, I look great, and your back would just be all patchy. None of these like long gloves that you have today. No, these bad boys are nothing.
And do you remember the sealed section? Oh gosh, of those magazines, like Dolly Doctor.
They were great.
Yeah, and now
mine.
They got to a point though where they were just like, oh, the sealed section's a real like game changer for us. So it was like every magazine had a sealed section, but they kind of were running out of content to put in them. I remember one that was just like 40 fun things to try with your partner, you know, that you may not have thought of. And one of them was like, try having sex in a bathtub without the water because the confined space is exciting. And I was like, what?
Perfect.
Wow.
I just imagine someone like who had a deadline and was like, I'm going to get to 50. I'm going to get to 50, like 49. Bathtub, but without the water.
Adventurous.
Oh, God. I'm just imagining an elbow through a window and, you know, a twisted, you know, shoulder blade. Oh, my God.
The porcelain's unforgiving.
I'm not. Yeah. Oh. Gosh. Anyway,
nowadays someone would put it on TikTok.
Absolutely.
Oh, good old TikTok.
And then get a career straight after it.
Yeah. Well, I think it's interesting when you sort of talk about like don't do anything that doesn't feel like it sort of speaks to your integrity and stuff. It's so hard to kind of look at what trends. Like my biggest challenge at the moment that I find with social media and content creation is that I come from a TV background. So the stuff that I make, I like to make stuff that's like reasonably well produced. And for a creatively as a person, that's what I enjoy making because I think it's fun and I feel good about what I'm putting out there. But, you know, TikTok as a platform is really designed to like look bad and people want it to look like you filmed it on your phone and they don't want it to look good. And if it looks well produced, then they'll scroll past it, which presents a real challenge for me, you know, who is accepting a fee from a brand to make something. I can't deliver them something that I think is trash, but also knowing that if I make something that looks good, it's not going to do well. It's really tough. We sat through a seminar once when I was, you know, doing a sort of branded like retreat thing. And it was like, we had a presentation from some social media people who were like, this girl really took off on TikTok when she had a massive, like a mat in her hair that she couldn't get out. And so she went on TikTok live and was like, I don't know what to do. This massive like mat is in my hair. Like, I've tried all these different things and people were suggesting like vinegar and someone was like, you put honey in it and then this. And so she started buying all of this stuff while she was live and then like trying all these different things. And she amassed over like 1 million followers or whatever, like within the time of this live stream happening because she was like focusing on this thing. And so the end of the presentation was like, so, you know, like any opportunity to take advantage of something like that. And I was like, really?
Yeah, no. but what did she do after she got the mat out of her hair? Like, your career's done. If that's all, that's all you're making. What are you doing next?
It's just such a weird, it's such a weird message to be putting out there. Like, find the dumbest thing that you can think of to capitalize off, just to get as many people to follow you as possible. It's like, I'm not going to do that.
Not sustainable.
You have to be content with the fact that, you know, like you said, I feel like it's not about you have to be content with not being the person that's ever going to have the most followers or you know, have the hugest audience. You just have to have enough to be able to sustain you and make stuff that you feel proud of and that people enjoy watching. And I think the sooner you can kind of get into that mentality, the happier you will be. Because if you are trying to chase growth all the time, then that's the path you have to go down. And like, is that really what you want? Is that what you want your legacy to be? Is to be like the hair mat girl? Because
oh gosh,
the girl with the sty, she did that. She did like a 10-part series on TikTok about this massive sty that grew in her eye, and she was trying all like the old wives' tales, the gold ring, the ice. And then once she's all healed and clear to go, where do you go then? Oh, look at the bunion on my foot. That's next. Let's go. 20 parts this time.
That's I follow a lot of animals on social media, and I feel like I've had a few instances where I follow an account of a certain animal, and then that animal has died, and the person is like, they go through a period of mourning of the animal dying, and then they're like, also, this is Fred, and
he's a replacement.
We're all like, oh, are we all cool with Fred? Or
yeah, look, there's what happens after the viral content. You know, that's probably a book title or a blog title or something.
After the viral,
you know, what happens after you go viral? I think probably, you know, some of us have had, you know, potentially viral stuff that has gone out there, but then what happens after that? And like I said, it's probably just making sure, in order to sustain yourself as a creator, making sure that everything you do is true to who you are. Otherwise, you're just going to burn out or you're going to fail potentially. So
and the persona just disappears very quickly as well. It's so hard to not be yourself. Like, just the acting and the effort it takes to be like that, like your
all
brand can be you, you know, and that's what's going to be your biggest motivator as well, and it is sustainable keeping it that way.
Totally. I think that's really good advice.
Look at us, we know things
with it as well. We know things.
For sure. Like oh my goodness, like the amount of times I had to like stop myself and be like, no, this is zeros and ones. This is zeros and ones. If the internet disappeared tomorrow, what impact have you put out in the world? Or like, what would you do with what you have, you know, or what you've built? So it's like, for me, I had to get myself out of that kind of negative mindset of, oh, this person has more followers than me, or this person worked with this brand, or I really wanted to go to that event and I didn't get invited, and all that kind of stuff, and just stay true to who I am. And hey, if I don't get that, that's fine. You know, just move on. And things. What did I say on that other episode? I said, grow with the flow. So,
oh, that's very good.
Yeah. So making sure that, you know, if I am each day serving myself and making sure that I am being in, you know, maintaining my integrity, opportunities will come to me, you know?
Yeah. You're inviting that positive impact, that positive energy, and it'll come 100%.
For sure. Was there, Steph, I must ask, what was the one thing that you were like, oh my God, I've made it? Like, what was that one email, that one DM that came to you and you were like, this is amazing?
Oh man, I think it was just when we there was this like wonderful kind of rubber banding moment of like the getting the job on Good Game was such a dream come true, because it was a show that I was such a big fan of, you know, and you know, when I'd met Barjo at a convention when I was filming this audition tape for a different ABC network show, and we were talking about games. When I found out they were looking for a host as well, I was like, that would just be amazing. So to get that job was so amazing. And then the way things kind of panned out with me replacing one of the male hosts and it being this kind of massive backlash from the audience, it ended up just being so awful. It was really like sad to have this kind of dream come true moment be turned around so quickly by this kind of horrible circumstance. And then when we launched the kids show, not only had Good Game been sort of on air for long enough that people were starting to be like, oh, she actually kind of knows her stuff and is passionate about games and maybe, you know, we should give her a shot. You know, we launched this kids show and like young girls were watching it and started sending in letters and drawings, like gorgeous little hand color pencil drawings of me being like, I love video games and I've never like had the confidence to sort of share that. But I like when I see you on TV, like that makes me feel like, you know, I can say that I love video games too and all that kind of stuff. Like,
that's so special.
And so I would stick them all up around my desk. I had like pictures of me as like a little sack girl from Little Big Planet, or like pictures of me with my like nose ring like drawn and like colored in. Like it was super cute. Like that to me was just the best. So when those letters started to come in, it really kind of hit me that it wasn't just about being on a TV show. It was like, oh, there's a representation issue that has been sort of missing from the space for a while that I'm actually contributing towards changing. So that was probably the moment, I think. Yeah.
So you felt that gravity of the reputation of being a woman within the gaming space that's predominantly male dominated?
Yeah, because also I was going to so many different events at that time to sort of promote video games and stuff that it was just all journalists that were dudes. It was just like a sea of cargo shorts, you know, like at every event, you know. I would go to E3 and like there would be a line for the men's bathroom and I would walk into the women's bathroom and it was just empty. And I was like,
wow.
Like,
that is rare.
Wonderland. Like I could do any cubicle I like. Like it was like, this is like a bizarro upside down world. It was so strange. Yeah, I felt it. I felt it like it. And I imagine like women in sport for a long time as well were just kind of fighting the same fight. Every now and again I'd have a sort of a brush up against someone working in the sport industry and would be like war stories, you know, like just trying to sort of get through with a bit of grace because we were in so many situations where it was just really tough. But I think just knowing that the next sort of generation would have it maybe a little bit easier because of you know, various women across the industry who are just kind of trying to put themselves out there a little bit was pretty cool.
Oh yeah, 100%.
I saw a Twitter post. I think it was Domino Jack. I think she put it out, and she said, "Is there one reason why you content create, or what keeps you motivated to do what you're doing?" And I shared it out, and I was like, because if I stop, there'll be one less female in gaming. And that
puts a lot of the onus on you to be fulfilled through other people. I respect that, but I also feel like it's got to be making you happy, right? In some way.
For sure.
Some way. Yeah.
Well, and that's what I mean. Like I said, I found myself throughout my own journey cornered into these spaces where I was like, this doesn't feel right, and because of a lot of self-work in myself, I've realized that I don't have to fit into any mold that anyone sets for me. I am unique, and therefore I can create these unique spaces, and that's where I found myself now. And not that I think that I am, you know, the best or anything like that, but I want to continue to make sure that there are female voices in this space. And my experience with podcasting, like I just didn't see like many females in gaming doing this kind of content. And that's where I found a lot of things that aligned with me personally and professionally. And I'm really open to seeing where it goes because, you know, I like to grow with the flow.
I think we're all doing something so special. Sorry, but it really is heartwarming seeing how much progress the space has made and being a part of it. Like, if that's not your biggest motivator, then I'll never, as a woman, I don't know what is, you know. It's so special to be growing with the flow and making that impact in the space. No matter how big or small it is, like, we're all banding together and we're uniting over this issue, and we are paving the way for the future.
I'm curious to know from each of you how you've found sort of like putting yourselves out there as gamers in a space where for so long there was kind of this idea like women like can't play games or don't have the skill level or like just are never going to be. It's like for a long time I would say, you know, on average, sure, because there are fewer women playing competitively because the space is just super toxic. Then, like, if you were to look at numbers, yeah. But it's like if you give women the same opportunity and the same space to be able to kind of grow and develop those skills, then, you know, would be able to see more women in esports and we'd be able to see more women kind of playing competitively and stuff. For me, for a long time, I was so nervous to stream or play genres of game that I felt like I didn't have the skill level, not even simply just because I've never been someone who's been particularly quick. Like I love shooters and I play them weekly, but I would never say that I'm ever going to be like particularly like good at them. And there was a real kind of like turning point for me when I sort of just started streaming. It was just like, I don't feel now like I have to represent all women as in terms with my skill level, because there are so many more women that I can point to and be like, yeah, okay, like maybe I'm not the best at shooters, but like that doesn't mean women aren't good at shooters. Here's 5 that are awesome. And now that I can do that, it's felt like the presence of other women has taken the pressure off me to feel like I can't put myself. Do you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Have you felt anything like that when you've been sort of gaming online, like that you're going to be judged, or were you nervous about anything like that?
Look, and this goes in regards to just playing games in general, not necessarily if you're a streamer. So you can definitely feel this way even if you're just gaming with your friends. I play quite a bit of Xbox, and yeah, there are a lot of times where I do have that like I'm having a fun time, but am I contributing to my team in Halo? Like am I the carry? You know, I do think about that. But in saying that, I don't think people invite me to play because I'm the best, and that's okay. Not everyone is the best, whether they're male or female. They invite me because I'm a vibe, you know, like
Heck yeah.
I'm not the talent. I'm the vibe, and that's okay. And you don't have to be. And this is something that obviously, you know, with the whole, again, we can go down the psychology of this, but feeling good enough for others, and quite frankly, you can be enough for others just by being yourself. And sometimes yourself is not the best at shooters, but you know what? You remember all the character names of, you know, some sort of, you know, story-driven game that you really, really love. And, you know, that person's playing it because like another person might be playing it, you know, for the achievements or whatever. And you can, you know, lend your hand in their gaming journey. It doesn't mean that you're a bad gamer, and it doesn't mean that all women are bad at being gamers. The only time it's ever put into question, I feel, is when we talk about men versus women in gaming. And unfortunately, there are a lot of bad gamers that are guys. So, but that never comes up. That never comes up because it's always like men versus women. But look, all I can say is from my point of view, yeah, I did feel disheartened, but as I've become more comfortable and more confident in this space, I've realized that, you know, I have my purpose, and my purpose is not to get the highest kill count.
Yeah. I never really dabbled in online gaming until I was an adult because of that worry and that fear. And shooters, I never played growing up. I was always the platform gamer and the single player or playing multiplayer with my siblings. So when I did get introduced to that online space, I felt it so hard, and it was really a struggle for me to break down that barrier and let myself enjoy it, because I was so worried that like I just was going to be left out. And even as something as simple as in the past, you know, I jump on Call of Duty with in some old friends in a past life, and they would all make jokes and just have these conversations knowing I was there, but I wasn't involved in it. So it always felt very like excluding, and I just never felt a part of it. So even to this day, I still find it really hard to break down that wall and jump into online with other people, because I've got this unfortunately bad history of feeling uncomfortable online, and that has shaped the kind of gamer that I am. And that's why I play a lot of single player stuff, because for me that's my bubble of happiness. You know, I can protect myself there. But it's good to hear that other people don't necessarily have those issues anymore, and that it is becoming a more welcoming space. But it is something that I still struggle with. Even all these years online and being a part of the gaming space, I still find it hard to get involved in like chat rooms and multiplayer with other people, which is quite interesting.
Yeah, I'd agree. I feel quite similar in that my chat rooms are just full of my friends, and I know people. I get really shy if I'm, especially my game of choice for that would be Fortnite, and if I'm doing a duos or a squads with people I don't know, I will mute myself. Like I just get so shy, and I've had a couple bad experiences where people say strange things. Like one of the ones that stand out to me, I went to a school reunion and I was chatting to someone that I wasn't really friends with back in the day, but you know, it's really lovely to catch up with people. And I'd mentioned that I'd started streaming and I was playing video games. And he kind of looked at me and turned and said, "But you don't really look like someone who plays video games." And I was like, is that
what does that even look like?
I was mind blown. I was like, is that an insult or is that a compliment? And I'm like, I just don't want to unpack that. Like, I don't understand what you're talking about. So I just kind of left it. And even previous to that, when I was on the dating apps several years ago now, that I would make a reference to a game. Like I think I said something about like, oh, go all Ezio, because he was talking about being stealthy. And he's like, did you just make a video game reference? And I was like, yes. And he's like, oh my God, like list the games you play, blah, blah. And as much as I'm here for the passion, the excitement, it definitely wasn't coming from a place of genuine kind of excitement. Like, oh my gosh, this person shares my hobby. It was more like, oh, cool. Finally, a girl that's into what I'm into, but let me hone in on it. Like it was quite uncomfortable. We weren't talking about, oh, I really like go-karting or bowling. It was very intense of
it's
she likes video games.
Suddenly you became the idea of you became like a gimmick almost.
Yeah, a bit of a manic pixie dream girl. And I was like, I'm not here for that, my friends. And so the definitely online chats I kind of avoid, but now that I'm deeper into my streaming career and I do more gaming things online, it doesn't bother me as much. And if anything, a lot of the men are now loud about supporting women in the creation space as well as the gaming space. And girl gangs are so important to have females that build you up, because we can be quite competitive with each other. But having men build you up too is also so important, because we need everyone. We need everyone supporting everyone within this gaming community. And it starts and ends with all genders.
Totally. But men also need to lead by example, I feel like is the big thing too. I was so like you, Liessshy. I played so many single player games. I think also just because of the stage of my life that I was at, where I really just gaming for me was escapism, and that was what I wanted. I think now that I'm a bit older and I go out less.
That's the idea of socializing.
Yeah. I get more of my sort of social interaction online. And also I think Discord changed a lot because it's so community focused. It's created little pockets of social areas for me to meet more people and find people that I enjoy playing different games with. And I think I really felt like that's given me the space and confidence to actually get better at shooters, even though I didn't play them to get better. I felt like I've got better, and that was, I feel like, something that I was an opportunity I was never afforded before, because the spaces were super toxic, and also just the games. Like when my husband is like a hardcore Halo player, like he just loves it, and like, of course I didn't grow up playing Halo every day like he did, because every game at that time was, muscly dude with a gun on the cover of a game, probably in a spacesuit. Every game was just marketed to a very specific audience. So, people are like, why aren't there more women like gamers? It's like, well, that's like, you grew up with something that was literally tailored to you. So that fostered an environment for you and people like you, and it's going to take time for this generation to be able to react to the stuff that's now more available to them. And of course, in 10 years from now, I'm sure we will see really awesome competitive female gamers, but we need that generation who've been able to grow up with more to kind of get to the point where we're reaping the kind of rewards of that, I suppose.
But it's like, even sorry, just real quick, it's even with like sport games, right? We're now starting to see females on the cover. So if a little girl walks in who loves sport to a game store and she sees that, she's going to grab that off the shelf, because again, it is marketed to her. So that is a really important point.
I think they did that really well. FIFA putting,
but even AFL as well. Like you're seeing it more, and I think that's awesome.
Yeah, Lara Croft was probably the biggest turning point in the industry for me. I think seeing that shift was like, oh, things are changing for a big mainstream IP like that to completely reboot and transform the character, and to see the success of it afterwards. They hired a female writer to tell her story, and the fact that she was so vulnerable at the same time as finding her strength, and that story resonated with everyone, was such a proving ground, I think, for people to be like, oh, okay, like this works, and people of all genders want to play this character, and it's not about trying to appeal to just single sex demographics. It's just about trying to create games that reflect a broader range of people.
Well, especially coming after Uncharted, because it's kind of the same sort of vibe. It's, the adventure game where it's super exciting, adrenaline, and obviously Uncharted has a male character, and then we get Tomb Raider, absolutely fantastic gameplay. The story of the reboot's like amazing, and so everyone can enjoy it. It's not like it's purposely tailored. Oh, we'll give the girlies some jungle fun, and it's not necessarily. It's not a girl's game. It's just a game with a girl as the main character, and that's so exciting.
Yeah, absolutely. I love a good female protagonist for sure. But I find it interesting that, and I've said this before, females are not a minority in the gaming space. It's just that we're not shown as often, and whether it's in the marketing of games or the protagonists of games, I don't know where this idea actually came from, because a lot of women play video games. There was a study that the findings are just being released now by the IGEA and Bond University, and it's an Australian research project. 48% of Australian females play video games. 48. And I know, Liessshy, you're not one that plays video games to socialize, and that's okay, because the study showed that only 59% of all gamers actually play to socialize. So it's a really interesting study. If you guys are you like numbers, but it kind of really leans into the fact that the more of us that are showing ourselves, the more female protagonists that are in games, I think it's going to benefit gaming in general. We're not trying to take up male space. We're trying to increase female space.
Of course, integrate it all hang out together.
For sure.
Absolutely.
Yeah. I will move it back into the content creating space. I've just lost where I was up to. There we go. Do you find that, like, when you're playing games, do you find that you are kind of leaning more into you try and actively seek out females, or is it just something that you guys just, when you are in parties, is it something that you focus on, or?
That's a good question, really.
I've never thought about that, to be honest.
No. I would even go as far as saying most of my friends who I game with are male. So I kind of rope them all in. I'm like, it's a Fortnite night, boys, jump on in. And I wish a few of my gal pals played video games, but I think that they're quite intimidated with starting as an adult because it can be quite tricky, because all of the games, I will be the first to admit, games are hard. Like Steph, I'm a bit like you. Like, I will openly admit that I am not a very talented gamer. So when it comes to the more tricky things, it can be quite intimidating. And so I always recommend easier games like the Dark Pictures Anthology, the decision-making games. So Until Dawn and The Quarry that's just come out. Those sorts of things are good because it's less aiming. It's more gameplay in the way of decision-making. And the cutscenes are ginormous because essentially you're playing a movie.
Those are great gateway games for sure. Yeah.
I always recommend them to beginner gamers, which predominantly always end up being women because, as you were saying before, a lot of games back in the day were targeted to boys and men. And so it was trickier for women and girls to get into gaming if they didn't have a male influence. Because I would easily say I got into gaming because of my brother, and watching him play, that spurred me onto then playing. And so that's kind of carried forth, and that my friends that don't have brothers don't really play video games. So it'd be an interesting correlation, or even an interesting study to see like the pipeline between gamer gal brother influence.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't say that I seek out a little gang of my own gal pals. It's more just like anyone that wants to play, I'm down for. I just need a squad.
Yeah. I would say I'm pretty fortunate in that I have a pretty good split, I would say. And a lot of that is just through the community of gamers that I've gotten to know through both Good Game and now Back Pocket, the sort of variety show that we do.
Yeah.
It's very kind of a pretty good split gender-wise, or at least a broad range gender-wise. And so I would say of a night when there's a few, it depends on the game. Like if I'm playing something like Destiny 2, then maybe it would be more weighted towards men, just because there's a group of friends that I kind of fell in with that were already kind of friends, and played the game together. But even that, I would say more women have entered that group as well. But of a night, I would say it's a pretty even split of the people that I'm playing with. In a kind of public lobby, no, I would say mostly men, but I would say also if there are women playing, they're on mute.
Yeah.
So it'd
well,
be
that's the
hard
thing.
to
Half
know.
the time you don't know. Yeah.
And that leans into that narrative of, girls don't game, or like real gamers aren't female, or whatever.
Yeah. I used to be really scared of using my voice in games, but now I think if I play multiplayer shooters and stuff that have like global chat, typically it's something like DMZ or something that is like one of those kind of survival games where you're trying to barter with people a little bit, and I kind of love that because then I find that dudes are in a situation where they're so used to just playing with other dudes and just trying to kill each other that when you rock in, you go, "Hey," they're like,
"Oh my god,
what's happening?" And I'm like, "What's going on, man?" And they're just like, "Hello," and I'm like, "Do you want to go for a drive? Hop in." And they're like, "Okay." I'm like, "How's your day going?" They're like, "I don't know. Are you going to kill me?" And I'm like, "Not if you don't kill me." And they're like, "Okay." And it's like, honestly, it throws people. And I feel like then they become like really obsessed with this kind of bizarre experience that they've had. I played a game that was like that was, I think it was BattleBit Remastered, actually, which is kind of like a cross between Battlefield and Minecraft. It looks kind of like blocky and stuff like that. But it had that big sort of global chat in it. And And I just kept encountering random people, and we would have funny role play moments and jokes and stuff. And, it was so refreshing for them to suddenly be in an environment where it wasn't always just about instant killing. And obviously there was still it was still team-based shooters. We were doing that, but I was forging little alliances with people. And at the end of the night, this person messaged me, was like, that is the most fun I've ever had in that game. And I was like, you're welcome.
That's awesome.
It's just the gamer girl magic. What can I say? What can I say? How have you, you briefly touched on like community. How do you feel like as a creator, and I guess everyone can sort of speak on this, how do you help foster your community, or how have you felt like building that community and managing the pressures that a community can give you as a creator?
I've talked a lot. I'll let you guys go first.
Yeah, I think like on a smaller scale, it's a lot easier. For me, my community has changed so much over the years because I've dabbled in a few different things, but I've got my core and I've built like the friendships with them that it's just so easy to communicate and to keep them just engaged. But it also, the flip side of that is social media can be so tiring. And half the time when I've worked and I've done all my content, the last thing I want to do is just sit online and chat and engage. So it's really hard to balance the both most of the time. But I think it's, again, because I am talking a much smaller scale, for me, it's very easy to keep conversations happening, and whether or not, it's a chat over a couple of days, when I can actually find the energy to respond. Most people respect that and they understand. But yeah, like I've ridden the waves over the years. Like I'm still in that. I feel like I'm in the point where I'm shifting into something different at the moment. So I'm relearning a lot of my things and what I do, and that involves my community as well. So it's I need to find new ways to keep them around.
Yeah, for sure. I've been actively seeking out more female people in my community because I think I accidentally fell into a space where it was mostly men following me, and I was like, I'm about to launch something that's so near and dear to my heart that I do want men to support this, but this is really for women. And I've been actively seeking them out, and it's been working. I'm very happy. I'm very happy with my progress so far because I've changed my stats by 10%.
That's great to hear.
That's good.
But yeah, so it's not necessarily for me. It's not been really about the numbers. It's about looking at okay, so if I want my community to be engaged, who is my content for, who is my main audience, and then making sure that I can attract the people that I want, if that makes sense.
Yeah.
And Ellie's just out here having a good time. Ellie's
I just don't take it kind of seriously, even with my streams. I'm just kind of, because I'm not there because I'm a good gamer. Like, you don't click on my stream to watch because like, oh, she's a fantastic gamer, she's really satisfying to watch. Like, oh, nay. Like, I'm going to be missing them shots. I'm going to be getting killed by those zombies. But we're going to vibe while we do it. That's it. And so I encourage backseat gaming with my streams because I'm like, girly, if you tell me to turn around and go back in that door because I missed something, please do. The monkey brain says collect everything. She must collect everything. And I think I've carried that across also to Instagram. I've kind of blended the two with encouraging people with my streams. Like, come and check me out on Instagram. I make stupid gaming reels. Like, I just make reels that every day I'm like, what do I want to do today? And I think some of the audio that people create on the reels are so much fun to then make it into something that not only relates to me, but relates to a bunch of other people. And then also I get to be goofy. And I think it's that part of the community is it's super fun, and it's been met with a lot of ha-has, which I love, because that's what I think at the end of the day, we're all just here for fun, and that's what I'm doing, not taking things too seriously, so enjoying it.
Make ha-has. Okay.
Yeah, I think the way to look at it is that you know, I think spaces like Discord were created to kind of foster communities of people so that they have so that people have a space where they can interact with each other, not necessarily interact with you. It's not really about you getting online and talking to everyone as often as you can, but maybe I've found because I'm just not super present in Discord. I don't have the time or mental space or energy to be able to do that, and I think people understand that. But you know, I'll dip in when I can. But you want to be able to create a space that people feel like they can go to talk to each other and engage with each other. Yeah. So if there's a game that you're playing a lot of, like whenever I start playing a new MMO or whatever, I'll create a channel and then we'll start posting in there, and people who are into that game start sharing stuff. And then they're like, hey, I was looking at starting a new group. Is there anyone in this channel who'd be interested? And then they sort of, it needs to be able to exist almost independently of you. Yeah.
Totally.
And everyone maybe have started there because of you, and you were kind of the conduit. But like the wonderful thing about Discord is it's how people meet each other and how they find kind of like-minded people, because they kind of arrived with a common interest and then blossomed, you know. So it's less about kind of going in and talking to people, but maybe it's about just restructuring your sort of channels and looking at which ones, you know, are serving people well and fostering communication between them.
Yeah, I think for me it's a little different because I don't stream anymore. I haven't streamed for quite a while, and a lot of my content is heavily educational based, especially on YouTube, especially like in the tech space. So for me, I get a lot of messages because people want help or they want to talk about a product, and I love engaging with them with that. So that's where I do find the exhaustion, because I'm so switched on with those conversations and I want to be, but it is very one-on-one in that regard. So it's a little bit different for me, and I'm trying to find a way where it can be a bit more sustainable. But Discords just die for me because my space is a little bit different. So
that's really tough. Especially, I've done a couple of videos maybe for Logitech and stuff where I'm like, here's how you can use this software, and for years afterwards I'll get people being like, hi, can you please help me? I've gone into this setting and I've done this and I can't figure out how to do that, and I'm like,
I made it like 5 years ago. I can't remember.
Yeah. So
I know that feeling.
If you're kind of like focused on sort of you know, tech stuff, tech educational stuff, I can imagine you would get a lot of that, and then just become tech support. When I was at uni, I worked in a call center for like doing tech support for like a few different companies, and I just remember like how hard that can be.
It's a lot. And then at the end of the day, we come to a conversation where we're just talking about the product or talking about our interests. So like it does lead from tech support into general chats, which is awesome, but that's how it starts, and it's tiring.
That would be really time consuming. Maybe you need like Liessy's helpline Discord, and people just like put all their questions in there.
That's a pretty good
one. And they submit tickets.
We need to create you like a little chat bot that like is like, hi.
Thank you so much for your message.
I noticed you were struggling with this issue.
That is such a good idea, actually.
Press 1 for help with Elgato. Press 2 for help with JBL.
I need to take that. That's so cool.
We usually go for an hour and a half, and we're just about to reach that now. You guys, what an amazing episode. I've had the best time, and
it's been amazing.
I feel like we've spoken on a lot of points that have been, I think, will be really beneficial to anyone who is beginning or, you know, maybe is struggling in the content creating space. And I really hope that we've been entertaining and informative.
Absolutely. And we've had fun.
Infotaining.
Thanks so much for having me. This was awesome.
For sure. Before we do head out, though, I do want to ask the girls, how have you been going with your Elgato tech? Because my favorite thing this week has been the mute button, because I have a lingering sickness, so I've been able to like just quickly tap the Wave XLR on the top, and I can mute myself really easily, and that way you don't have to hear me coughing. Liessshy, I see you've got like a brand spanking new item there that I'm extremely happy for you about.
Yes. well. I am, yes, a part of the Elgato team now, and again, from that educational perspective. So I am using quite a lot of their stuff. I mean, I always have, but I've got a lot of new stuff at the moment, and I'm loving it all. My favorite thing is the new Stream Deck Plus and just mucking around with it and doing shortcuts to things. And I will say, please subscribe to YouTube, to my channel, because I will have a series coming out over the next couple months that I'm excited to work on. And if you want to learn how all this stuff works,
Is
that's
the
what you want to
Stream Deck
check out.
Is the Stream Deck Plus the one with the knobs on it?
Yeah.
Oh,
that's
look at
boy.
it.
This one. It's so cool. I got the
That's
white one. It
juicy.
fits really nice in the setup. So
Yeah.
I've been loving that. But my favorite always comes back to this microphone. I just love this. Oh, the new arm. It's in white now, guys.
I know.
Cool.
I'm obsessed.
Yes. They just need to do the Wave DX in white too, and then I'd be happy.
Ooh, yeah, I would say mine is just the convenience of the whole how it all meshes together, if that makes sense. Like a little gorgeous little puzzle, because the Wave XLR, just being able to press to your different things, so your mic, your headset, and then the mix with the mute, and then you can fiddle with it. You know, you don't have to turn on the mic separately. It's already hip hop happening itself. And for a lazy gal like me, just minimal setup of starting everything up is fantastic. And even controlling the light is quite simple, because you just flick it on and then you've got your little control panel and you can make it warm or cold or brighter or darker. And lazy gal central, I love it. So gets my
it all integrates really well together. And it's good for beginners, like you just said, like people who aren't so heavy invested into learning how tech works or whatnot. It's for beginners, and it can be for the advanced as well. But you can start off and you can learn this very quickly. So that's what I love about it
at that as well.
Yeah,
awesome stuff.
It doesn't have to be cheapo stuff.
Nice, for sure. Thank you to our lovely chat. Thank you to all of our Spotify listeners, and thank you to our lovely guest, Steph.
Woohoo.
We will see you all next week. Have a great week ahead of you, everyone. And thank you for being here.
Bye. Bye-bye.